Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of ConCensis, a podcast from Censis Technologies. I appreciate you joining us here today very much. I'm your host, Tyler Kern. Welcome to another episode of the show. Today, we're talking about how surgical instrument marking can improve your perioperative. And joining me here is Bill Camargo. He's the manager of marking services at Censis. Bill, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. We are very happy to have you. And we're also thrilled to be joined today by Jennifer Bingaman. She is the Director of Business Services at Censis. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have both of you on here with us today. And we're tackling an important topic, right? And so let's kick it off just with a good introduction here and inform people on just what surgical instrument marking is. So can we break that down for the audience?
Yeah, it's very basic. It's essentially you're putting a mark on each of your instruments so that you can track them through the whole perioperative process. You think that if you have 200 of the identical instruments, having them marked lets you know which one of those 200 you have in your hand at any given time. So that's what it does.
Now that makes a lot of sense. So talk to me about some methods for marking surgical instruments. Which one is best, or are there different techniques that work better for different instruments?
Yeah, there's three primary methods. There's laser marking, electrochemical marking, and then mechanical marking, which incorporates a number of different things, dots, tape, peening, different things like that. Most commonly used right now is laser marking. It's pretty quick and does a good job with it. And it can make a pretty small mark, basically as small as you want to make it in order to be able to see. You don't want to make marks that are so small that you can't see them. So obviously you do that. And it fits for many different materials. You could even do plastics and things with laser, although there is some challenges there because different polymers react differently. So you have to work on setting up the different parameters and try not to destroy any instruments in the process because you may melt if you have them set wrong. But there are spots-based lasers are required having a focal length. And so that means you have a certain amount of space between the lens and the instrument itself. And with some instrument configurations, it's very difficult to, if not impossible, to mark it with a laser to get that length. That's where electrochemical can come into play. Because you could take, for instance, an instrument that looks like a pencil. It has all knurled handles. There's no geography to put a mark, except right at the very base of the pencil, where the eraser would be. You can do that with electrochemical. So there's that. And then you get some instruments that are just not really workable, or if you don't want to try to get into your plastics with a laser, not good for marking either of those. And that's where the mechanical means comes into place. Very commonly a key dot or something like that. And they work, but the downside of those is they're much less permanent because they're put on with adhesive, and their lifespan is not quite as long.
Yeah, that's a really good breakdown, Bill, and I appreciate the way that you explained that and kind of walk through each method. So, talk to us a little bit more about how marking your surgical instruments can improve your perioperative processes. How does this make things more efficient and things operate better?
So there's usually two main reasons why people choose to mark instruments. The biggest being that, when you're assembling a tray in sterile processing and you're able to scan each instrument to that set, it helps ensure that you have a complete set to the OR so that the OR staff aren't spending their time looking for missing instruments or, if there's an issue. If, God forbid, there's an infection control issue, then if you have instruments marked and you're scanning at the instrument level, then you know exactly what instruments were used on that patient, rather than just knowing, well, this tray was used on this patient. You actually get down to the instrument level.
That's really well put, Jennifer. I think that's a fantastic explanation. So let's talk a little bit more about Censis's SensaMark solution. So how is it different from other marking services, and what value does that provide to Censis customers?
Well, a couple of ways we're really different. One is that, we have the capability to do laser, electrochemical, or mechanical, any one or all three of them on a given project. So that gives us a lot of flexibility to get the highest percentage of instruments marked that we can. And the other aspect is because we're talking with the SensaTrack software product as well, when we mark at a project to mark the instruments, we also commission them into the SensorTrack software. So that when it's turned over to you, they're ready to scan and use. You don't have to do anything else to try to get them into your system. So that's a kind of a unique thing we can do. So basically, it's kind of a turnkey solution. You bring us, we come on in, we get them marked, they're in your system, and you're ready to roll.
Right. And earlier, Bill, you walked through the different marking techniques. Why is it important to offer those different techniques like you mentioned?
Because no one technique will be able to cover all instruments.
Right.
There's just things you can do with one you can't do with another. What you want to do is lead with a primary methodology and have your backups if you have to use them.
So why is it important then to commission marked instruments into your surgical asset management system? What benefits are provided there?
Why is it important to commission? The only way that you can use the marks to track your instruments is if SensorTrack knows that this instrument is this instrument. Think of it like from a manufacturing standpoint. If I'm at a grocery store and there's a barcode on that milk gallon, right? When I go to check out, if the software doesn't know that I'm holding a milk carton, or that gallon of milk, then the barcode is kind of pointless. So it's the same principle with instruments. Got to tell the software what the instrument is.
So maybe a nice follow-up then is, why is it important to have clean data when commissioning marked instruments? And how does Censis really help with this?
So I get the question about clean data all the time from customers. So it's always best practice to have a catalog number and a supplier for the instruments that are in your tracking system. When it comes to descriptions, the more detail, the better, especially with measurements, 7 inches versus 4 inches. It makes a big difference for what's on that count sheet. When you begin tracking at the instrument level, just having that added information for each of your instruments will make it easier for substitute identification, so that if I'm holding an Esculap instrument in my hand, but on the count sheet it says that it's supposed to be a Jarrett instrument, then I know that I can substitute those instruments out. So basically, the more information, the better.
Fantastic stuff. So I'd love to get any final thoughts that either of you have. Actually, I'd love to hear from both of you. Anything else that you'd like to add about SensorMark or surgical instrument marking here for our audience today? Either conclusion statements, anything we haven't discussed yet that you think they should know. The floor is yours. Let's start. Jennifer, why don't we start with you, just for any final thoughts that you have here today?
Final thoughts. I would say that marking your surgical inventory isn't as obtrusive as you think, and we're here to help you get the job done. Excellent stuff. Bill, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, kind of along the lines of what Jennifer was talking about, are the folks we use and we send out teams to mark. They're folks who've been working around sterile processing for a number of years, their careers. So they understand what's going on in your department. They know that we're kind of a burden being in the middle of what's going on and having to get instruments from you. So they're really great folks willing to work with you. We're very flexible on schedules when we need to be. We've had folks work evenings. We've had folks work weekends. Whatever we kind of do to try to, work in with your operations and make the whole process as easy on you as we can.
Yeah. And kind of what Bill says, we've been doing this a very long time. We're experts at this, so we've seen it all.
Millions of instruments marked.
That's a great point. Having that level of experience and that track record of success, I think, is a fantastic thing to highlight for people. And so that is, I think that's a really excellent thing to wrap up on, so that people are aware of that. Absolutely. Bill Camargo, Jennifer Bingaman, thank you both so much for joining us here on ConCensis and sharing a little bit more about how surgical instrument marking can improve your perioperative. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And everyone out there, if you want to learn more about Censis Technologies and the solutions that they provide, head to censis.com today. You can reach out, you can ask questions, you can learn more there on the website. And while you're there, you can check out more episodes of the podcast as well. Of course, you can also find them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts these days. You can find ConCensis there, so you can check out other episodes of the show to learn more about Censis's other solutions that they offer. And stay tuned. We'll be back soon with more episodes of the podcast. But for Bill and Jennifer, I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you again next time.